it's a kind of a wild story. So while I was in school on the weekends and during summers when I was home in St. Joe from Central Methodist, I worked at Planet Fitness in St. Joe. And the assistant general manager there at the time, I knew from growing up from around St. Joe, and I knew he was a pretty big wrestling fan. So we'd kick it at work sometimes, and I
Mhm.
remember him telling me because we both shared the love of wrestling, and he goes, "Hey, there's a pro wrestler that comes in here," and I'm like, "No, man, like St. Joe, like there's no like that doesn't really happen." But he's like, "No, man, for real, like, and I think this guy does training." So once I graduated and I was done with football, I was like, okay, like I'm going to see what this is really about. So got in contact with Niles Planquet, the great Niles, Mr. Craig,
Yep.
and there was a few months before I actually started training him, or before he actually started training me, that I was just in contact with him, trying to figure out, get more information, see what it was about, see where he was at. Luckily, like 20 minutes north of my house. And
Okay.
so I started training, I believe it was the end of May of 2022.
Oh gosh.
So I was still in college trying to finish my degree. I was done playing football, but I still had a semester left. And man, like just the thoughts that were going through my head, I was like, man, I really don't know what to expect. And as a kid, I tried to be like a smart fan as a kid.
Yeah.
I was into the internet and reading all that stuff. And so I would always want to get like the backstories and the behind the scenes stuff and learn as much about that. So knowing what I knew, about how guys back in the, 70s, 80s, 90s used to get broke in, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
this might be pretty tough. Going through collegiate strength and conditioning programs and just that sort of conditioning, I knew from an athletic standpoint that I could make it, but it was the mental part. I'm like, okay, like,
Mhm.
how much BS is there going to be? Is there going to be crazy politics just in training? But after my first day, I was hooked. Craig is seriously like the most wonderful coach. And it's funny because I call him coach. I call him coach sometimes, just because rather like trainer, rather just from my sporting background. I'm like, man, like you
Mhm.
were legitimately a coach. Like the way that he is, not only physically with us, but just like mentally getting to relate to every trainee in a different
Mhm.
way. Like he can find what motivates everybody, and he talks to everyone a different way. He can cater to how they are, and he caters to their
Mhm.
skill. And I was hooked.